Andrea Robertson is a singer-songwriter from the Geelong area in Victoria who released her latest album, Seasons, in 2024. She is also the of Americana on the Bellarine, a one-day festival which will be held on the Bellarine Peninsula near Geelong on the 22nd of February this year. So I'm going to ask her about all those things and more things probably. Hello, Andrea.
Hi, how are you, Sophie?
I'm very well, and great to meet you. We have exchanged a few emails, and I've been listening to the album and listened to some of your previous music, but I really like to start with your voice. It has this wonderful warm tone to it, and I saw one description of it as a voice like honey, and I do think that is true. So when did you start singing?
Look, it's just been a part of me always, like from a really young age. I've just always loved singing. As a kid, I was the youngest of three girls, and music was very much a part of our house. But I would find myself just singing along to mum and dad's records. We had music on more often than not. The TV was kind of secondary for many years anyway. I don't know if it's still that way for mum and dad, but back then music was the thing, and I would just always be singing along to things, but also working out harmonies and trying to mimic the singers. And I think that's just where my love for singing started. But later on, I got the opportunity to learn piano, and it sort of just all it continued.
Right.
Yeah.
So did your sisters sing as well, or was it just you?
Um, Honestly, I think it was mostly me. We could all sing, but I don't think it maybe wasn't just something that they spontaneously burst into as much as I did. Mum was a singer though, so
Okay.
she was a beautiful singer, and actually, Dad's got a pretty good voice too. So
Right.
yeah,
So it's interesting that you started to come up with harmonies because that is not something I would imagine that most kids do, or most adults for that matter.
no, I think when I guess retrospectively, I look at that and think it was probably unusual, but I very clearly remember doing it and being quite frustrated with um, friends who couldn't sing in tune. Like I just couldn't understand why people couldn't sing in tune, and then couldn't hear where the differences were with the intervals for harmonies and things. It was just something that was it just came really naturally to me.
Look, I think when you can sing, especially when you can sing in tune, it is annoying when other people can't sing in tune when you're too young to understand what's going on. But does that mean you have perfect pitch?
Yeah.
Okay. You're allowed to admit it. It's
Yeah,
fine.
well, look, I don't know if anyone has 100% perfect pitch, but yeah, like quite often. I mean, there's another thing I used to do as a kid was because I'd know the track order of different
Hmm.
albums, I would sing it before it came on, and it was like, yes, I'm in tune. I've got the right key. I
Oh,
would, and I still do that now. Like I just sort of think, I think it's just something that, yeah, it's quite inuit, but sometimes I'll sing a line to somebody and then I'll just check if I'm in the right key. Yeah, I've actually picked the right key to start on there, or
wow.
very rarely it might be just a smidge less than a semitone out or something. But yeah, it's a strange thing, that perfect pitch. I'm thankful that it's there, that's for sure.
I think it's quite rare because not you don't hear many people talking about it, but also I wonder sometimes if there are people who haven't and just have no idea because they haven't been exposed to music or they don't sing or whatever it is. So I think to have it and then actually do something with it is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think sometimes the musicians I play with, if they hit a bung note or if their instrument's slightly out of tune, I'll stop and I'll be like, I mean, I'm not in the middle of a performance, obviously, but it's like, can you just check that string? Something's not quite right there. Ah, yeah, there we are. That's better.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I'm probably really annoying to be around actually, but I always try to bring it up in a really friendly and relaxed way.
Well, I do think the audience notices as well, even if they're not quite sure what's going on. It's almost like a tingling at the back of the neck, sort of, oh, something's a bit off there. So
Oh yeah, yeah.
I think you could do it in the middle of a performance.
Yeah, yeah. Look, if it was really bad, I probably would. But more often than not, if it starts to happen, and it happens to me too. Occasionally, I've got to fix up a string on my guitar, and yeah, it's always just so much better when it's in tune.
True. Look, in life and in music, that's a philosophical statement.
Yes, it is very deep.
So you said there was a lot of music playing in your household as you were growing up. What did your parents like to listen to?
Um, Look, I remember a lot of people would hate to admit to this, but there was a lot of Neil Diamond at one stage, but that was kind of when I was very young. There was a lot of Elvis, Fleetwood Mac. Um, Fleetwood Mac's probably one of the biggest albums I remember listening to at a particular age and singing along to. But then there was, a real mixture there. Obviously, they were subscribers to Reader's Digest at one stage, and they had this sensational 70s cassette. It was like 6 cassettes that came out. So it went through the 70s, and there was all these really good tracks that we used to sing along to. But yeah, look at, I guess, getting into my sort of primary school years, we had a Queen album that I listened to a lot. The Beatles was another one. Um, Anne Murray. Mum used to listen to a lot of Anne Murray. Yeah, I don't know. It's Linda Ronstadt. That was another biggie. Yeah, so I guess there was a mixture of males and females, but yeah, probably that real probably a bit of a Californian sort of 70s country rock thing.
Yeah.
Do quite a bit, I reckon. Eagles.
I think
Yeah, the Eagles is another one. Yeah.
it's totally fine to admit to Neil Diamond. I love Neil. Whenever I hear him sing, I think that's an incredible voice.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's not really my cup of tea, but I can appreciate a good artist, and he obviously had something going right because he was very popular.
Yeah, well, still, I was at some live tennis the other day, and Sweet Caroline came on, and everyone was singing along. So
Oh yeah.
yes, Neil Diamond endures, particularly that song at the moment for
Oh
whatever.
yes.
So you mentioned learning piano, and when you did start to learn an instrument, did you think of it in terms of how you could use it with your voice, or was it actually I'm learning this instrument separately? And did you learn to read music and all of that stuff?
I did. I learnt classical piano, so I learnt to read music, but much to my teacher's disgust, I had a very good ear, and I wasn't very disciplined with the sight reading, which is still the case today. So I can read, but I just much prefer playing by ear and working things out. And then obviously that stemmed into songwriting, which started at quite a young age too.
Okay.
But I didn't really let on to many people about that. It was just I would often sit in my bedroom. I shared a bedroom with my eldest sister. So when I was in the room by myself, I had a little Sony cassette recorder that I think I got when I was maybe 11 or 12. And I used to sing concerts into that, talking in between these made up songs, no instruments in the background or anything. And yeah, so it was like I was talking to the audience and, appreciating their applause and all this sort of stuff. Until one day the other sister found the tape and she just went to town with it. Like it was, oh no, I was so embarrassed, but it was really funny in retrospect, but
At that age, though, it's not. It's mortifying.
Oh gosh, no. And I was an easy target, I guess, because I did something stupid like that and didn't try to hide it.
That's divine. I think it's because even then you're thinking about how to structure, a performance and thinking about audience, all these things that would become relevant later on.
Yeah. So yeah, look, piano was just I was just I still think I was very blessed to get that opportunity. Mum and Dad weren't particularly well off. I wouldn't say we were poor, but they were battling along and doing the best they could with 3 kids, and we all got the opportunity to learn an instrument, but that's just because they knew the value of it because they personally had the chance as well. And so 2 of us went on with it for quite a while. I went through to grade 5 classical, but then by that stage I was actually more interested in boys and really wasn't practicing or anything, but I was writing my own songs and really had lost interest in the discipline of reading and exams and recitals and all those things. So it was just something that eventually it was just a waste of money for them, but it gave me a terrific grounding. And it was a long time later that it was actually after having 2 kids, so early 40s, that I probably, or maybe 39 or so, I decided to go and do some vocal lessons, and that's because I had started teaching piano. You happy me to go off in this tangent at the moment?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think all of the work information is so interesting, and I'm constantly saying people love to hear about work. This is the work of being a performing artist.
Yeah. So, in between, obviously, there's a lot of life, and I did do performances and things, but I was actually, I guess you would perhaps put me in that category of it being an introvert extrovert. So, there was a part of singing and performing that I loved, but there was a big part of me that I found it very hard to overcome as well. Like I was right in the privacy of my bedroom with my Sony cassette recorder. But it was one of those things that it was like I didn't want people I just didn't want to be noticed too much. I think that was part of it. And some of that, I as I've got older, I can, I guess, assess the psychology behind that and see there was, um, there was some personal stuff that happened through my teen years and childhood and teen years that impacted that ability to be able to step into it sooner. But there's a time for everything, I guess. And I did move into, I started teaching piano. Had one student in particular that asked me to teach her to sing, and it sort of got me thinking, how would I teach someone to sing? Like, I understand music, but I've never had a lesson in my life. I've just done it naturally. So I actually thought I might do something for myself, and I went off to a singing teacher, and who was just brilliant. Her name's Belinda Densley, and she does. Oh, she's absolutely amazing. She's a Geelong person, but she's done private tuition, but she runs singing groups, community singing groups, and has actually studied really at a high level, assessing singing, and I think it's stepped into, say, the benefits of singing, but also particularly for dementia patients and things.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, she is amazing, and she was definitely a good fit for me. I remember her saying to me the first lesson, "You sing beautifully. What do you want to get from me? You can pay me to give you compliments, but maybe we should have a goal to work towards." So we set a goal to do my grade 8 vocal exam, contemporary vocal exam, and that's what we did. So
Right.
yeah, so it was probably a good 18 months that I went to her. I remember getting quite sick in the middle of that. I had a chronic case of vertigo, labyrinthitis, which knocked me around for a few months, and I had to sort of miss out for a little bit there. But then, yeah, we got back into it, and I did my grade 8 vocal exam, and I was absolutely shitting myself. Sorry, am I allowed to say that?
Yes, you
It
are.
was really weird how it took me back to my childhood and the piano recitals that I hate. Like, I really didn't like doing them. I knew I had to do them, and I'm kind of glad I pushed myself to do them, but the nerves just, I don't think I remember being as nervous as when I did that grade 8 vocal exam, and I never want to feel like it again.
So therefore, they're grade 9 out of the question. If there is
Yeah.
a grade 9.
Well, it changes. It goes into oh gosh, what does it do from there? I can't even think, but it basically, the grading actually stops, and it turns into something else. I've completely forgotten what, because I didn't want to do it.
Oh, fair enough. And I think having done that, yes, I mean, you achieve what you set out to achieve. I'm also interested in how those lessons might have affected you in a positive way as a singer yourself, and not just because obviously you're thinking about teaching singing, but in terms of how you understood or how you understand what your voice is as an instrument, how you communicate with it. Did it shift anything around that?
It certainly did, and there was a part of me initially that was a little reluctant to do it, because I thought I love the fact that I can do it really naturally, and I didn't want to take that away. Like, I didn't want to lose whatever it is, that the ability that I had. But I could see that everything that I did only strengthened or enhanced it. So I'm not, I guess I don't feel like I'm a showy performer. I still just really love to, I guess, I immerse myself in the song and I just sing how it feels. But I'm not really a frilly singer or anything. Like, just, I don't know, I just love to sing. But doing the lessons showed me that my ability was far greater than I realized. Like, I remember walking in there the first time and saying, "Oh, look, I think this is my range here to here." And it was like, she just blew it wide open to,
Right.
and actually a lot of the exercises I worked on were from the Dame Melly Melba book. So there were a lot of classical and opera exercises, which I actually really enjoyed, and very momentarily considered going in a different direction, purely because I'm not into opera music at all, but the challenge of singing and doing some of those things, it was kind of addictive, and I did really enjoy them. It improved my breathing, my control, projection. Like, it certainly improved a lot of things. Hasn't changed the sound of my voice though, as far as I sound like Andrea still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once you realized that your range was bigger than you had thought for quite a while, did that start to influence how you were writing your songs?
Don't know if it necessarily did. I guess I probably did. I still choose keys that I like to sing in, and I would say my favorite range is kind of that alto range, but I can push myself into some very high notes if I have to. I don't choose to sing up there because I don't like the sound of it for too long. But if I have to reach if I need to jump an octave or beyond and hit a note, I know I can do that just to, um, put a bit of oomph into a song or something.
Mm.
But or if I'm harmonizing, doing backing vocals, I can be very flexible and be, a soprano or drop down into a lower range. So I guess I think as far as my own songwriting goes, I still probably tend to favor singing in that sort of a particular register, which is more that alto crosses over into the men's tenor range a little.
Mhm.
There's certain male singers that I think, oh, we've got the same range. Like these are the keys that I would choose. And so they've obviously got quite high voices for males, but yeah, it's, it's an interesting thing. And it was very good for me to do that, to, I guess, realize, and this didn't happen straight away. It's an ongoing thing really, as I've taken on more students and obviously teaching singing now as well. It started just piano, but then I did branch into singing. Um, I really love sharing my own. I guess I just draw from all my different experiences, and people will come in and say, "Oh, I can't really sing. I can't sing this high, and I can't do that." And it's like, yeah, well, you just wait and see.
All right.
And I love being able to see them stretch and grow in a safe environment and see them, um, yeah, accomplish things, and the thrill of that. It's really
Mhm.
beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, because so much of singing is not just about technically what can you do. It is about the emotional experience of singing and that
Or,
feeling of being at ease. And obviously, if you're feeling tense, it's going to affect your range and the tone. So
yep,
there's so much in it. It's an incredible instrument,
it
voice.
is. Yeah. Yeah.
So in terms of when you started performing the way you are now, the music you have now, when did that begin?
That again, that was after I'd had kids. So we did perform, like we were in bands. My husband's my drummer, so we were in bands prior to that, before having kids, and even up to including having kids. Like we continued gigging when I had my first child. And then I remember playing a gig down at Airies Inlet when I was probably 3 weeks off having my second baby, and I was very big and a little breathless, but still singing. But then, yeah, it got really hard to continue with when there were two young ones, and so it sort of just went on the back burner for a bit. But then, I just got to the stage that I was writing a lot of songs still, and David, my husband, you know, was pretty much my biggest champion, and he said, like, you've just got some amazing songs. You really need to get these out there for people to hear. And so I had to overcome some big hurdles to push myself to do that at that stage in life. But we got that first album recorded, which was called, I'm not sure if you went back that far in my catalogue, but that was released in 2014.
Yeah,
It's called It's
I
About.
did go back that far. Yes.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, that was the first album, and it was just I'm still really proud of that album. Like, there's lots of things, with most artists, you look back and you think, oh, I would do this so differently now. But at the same time, it's really capturing a moment in time for me,
Mhm.
and where I was at, lyrically and musically, and also in my experience of recording and everything. So um, yeah, it was just such a huge achievement to do at that age and stage of life, to
Mhm.
be kind of branching out with just original music, because previously I definitely used some of my original songs in our sets, but it was a real mixture of, it was probably half and half covers and originals, with because we were with other musos, and there were two of us singing lead, so we would sort of swap and change around who was doing lead and who was doing backing, and that was great. We loved it. And she's not a relative, but she's almost like a sister, and we sang together so beautifully. It was like a great connection, and our voices just went together so well, and we could slip in and out of lead and doing backings very easy.
Mhm.
But yeah, I finally got to the point that I really, I love a good cover, but I just want to write songs and do my own stuff. That's
Yeah.
pretty much what it's about. Yeah.
Which, yeah, from everything you said about how you are as a singer, you said that you don't have frilly things in your voice, and obviously what you've made some decisions about how you sing that indicate that just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And then also what you're saying about the original music, it seems to me that actually you're a communicator. You want to be able to communicate directly with the audience, and if you embellish the voice to a point where it excludes people, because that's what can happen when you show all the tricks in your vocal range. The audience can think, oh, okay, that's just that person's not speaking to me anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the sense I'm getting, is that really you're just really interested in telling stories to people through your voice.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty accurate, I'd say.
Well, that's
Yeah.
I like it when
Well,
I'm
well
accurate.
done.
Now the album, just so Seasons is the album from 2024. The album just before that one was categorized as blues. So I'm wondering if that was at the time you were feeling like blues was the right vehicle for your voice, or it's just something you thought, hey, this is fun.
Well, look, it's funny you say that because it probably was categorized as blues, but again, if you listen to it, you can just hear that fusion of different
Yeah,
influences, genres. So it's
I
like
certainly heard some country in it. Yes.
oh, definitely, yeah, and a bit of folk, and it's like, yeah, I don't know. My music's always been like that, and it's a bit frustrating having to slot it into a genre. I understand why, like some people need that, and particularly, going along to an event one time and hearing festival organizers speak, they were saying, somebody brought that issue up, like, why do we have to categorize it? And it's like, well, it helps narrow them down when especially if they're doing multiple genres at their festival, they can sort of slot people into certain categories and then start analyzing or going through the applicants from there. So I guess it does serve a purpose, but at the same time, it just narrows everything down too much. Like,
Yeah.
very few people are just one genre. Like, the blues has influenced so many genres. The
Mm.
same could probably be said for country. And
Hmm.
there's really interesting documentaries about both, and where they're the origins of them, and how they have influenced contemporary music today. So
Hmm.
it's, I don't know. I feel like if you had to put me in a category, sort of blues roots is kind of where it's at, but alt country, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's where the Americana thing comes up. It's like,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
right.
it's like, let me just slot in under that category because it's a bit of an umbrella that does all of them.
Well, I also see, the category singer-songwriter being used a bit on Apple Music, for example. I think, well, that you could say that about a lot of different artists. And perhaps
Yeah.
that is the best catch-all category, singer-songwriter. But moving on to Seasons, you initially released that as 4 volumes, and I'm wondering if you wrote it that way too, in these discrete volumes.
No, I didn't. So I guess the collection of songs on Seasons, um, I think I found each time I've got to the end of a new album, like, and I've started releasing it, I kind of get a bit of a flood of new material and I start writing
Right,
quite, avidly again.
right.
So I think that definitely happened, but then we had COVID in between. So there was, um for me, like, in a way, I tried to stay in a very positive mindset during that time, and still know that I was very fortunate to, be in the position that I was in. I managed to do some online teaching, but, even the fact that when we got down to the 5K radius and we couldn't leave, go beyond that,
Mm.
the beach is in my 5K radius. So I walked so much during COVID. I mean, I love walking anyway, but I walked and I walked and I walked
Me
because,
too.
yeah. So it's just, I think I actually didn't write a heap of stuff during COVID as much as I wanted to. Like, I thought this is a great chance to do stuff, but I was just mentally not in the right headspace. So I think I wrote a lot of music, but just lyrically, I'd really dried up. So it sort of just started filtering in again. I guess as the world opened up, there was the song Timely Reminder that I wrote, which is very COVID specific. Doesn't necessarily have to be, but it was for me at the time. Um, and I released that as a single in 2021. And that was going to be part of the Seasons album. But when I got to the point of putting the tracks together, it almost felt like taking a step backwards in a negative way. So
Mhm.
I felt like I actually don't want to include this song anymore because it really did capture a moment in time. It belongs there. I can still
Right.
listen to it. I just didn't think it should be part of this new thing,
Mhm.
basically. So um, I think it was just as I started, getting the lyrics together for things again, and all of a sudden I realized actually I've got a really nice album's worth there, and I put in actually that was funded by a grant that I got, a COVID specific grant, and it was just a different pitch that I guess that got me, awarded me that those grant monies because it was to record them. It was an intentional thing to do a slow release, drip feed release
Hmm.
of 3 songs or an EP every quarter, which was just to try and gain some momentum again as I stepped back into the world as it opened up again. And it just felt like a good fit for me to do it that way. Um, so that's why there were the 4 separate volumes. And
Right.
then as that, I guess probably by the time the third volume came around, um, I realized I had to start thinking a bit more about the complete project and what I was going to do. And I decided to do a pre-order campaign, a possible campaign to get it onto vinyl. And knowing that the cost, fun, me CDs I still like to produce because I know some of my audience still want them, but it was just the cost of vinyl's just so great. So I thought I'll do it as a pre-order. Then I'll know I've got the sales there, and it
Yeah.
just thankfully I reached what I needed, yeah, got the vinyl and CDs done and a bit of merch, and off we went.
And also I think that model makes total sense because yeah, it's you if you can know that you have a quantity and then the run is funded
Yeah,
and then essentially people are getting what they're paid for anyway, right? So
yeah.
I think
So
for
yeah,
music,
I'm not going into debt and
yeah.
then waiting a long time to recoup the money through sales. So I knew I had the production covered, X number of sales, and then I've got, obviously left over so I can still sell merch at gigs and whatnot. Yeah.
Do you record close to home?
Yeah, at home.
Oh, at home. Very close
So
to.
other than it can't get much closer than that. Other than the live recording, I've recorded all of my albums at home. So yeah, we've got the room I'm in now is actually my sort of studio slash office.
Right.
It's permanently set up. We've got a PA and speakers and things, and that's more for rehearsal and lessons. But we've got a room upstairs. We've got multiple rooms upstairs, which are, it's obviously our house, but
Mhm.
a living room upstairs, which we really hardly ever use. It's just got heaps of amps and stuff in it,
Right.
and spare drum kits, and we often set that space up for recording in because it's got great acoustics. It's a cathedral ceiling and just some like a good mixture of hard and soft surfaces. So it actually records really nicely up there. But I did some of the tracks sitting in the stairwell and a couple of them in the bathroom, and it's sort of depending on the space and what the vibe you want to get.
Yeah.
Just utilize the house to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's like you understand your voice. You're obviously understanding the nuances of how the
Yeah.
sound's going to work in the house. Yeah. So the house in a sense becomes almost a part
An
of the recording.
extension. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And look, a lot of that is it's not necessarily my doing. I mean, I know what I like as well, but David has a really good ear for engineering and has done some engineering. And my son Heath, who's now 23, he's actually done he studied engineering, but he's a real natural as well. Multiple instrumentalist, songwrites, sings, and records and mixes, and he's been very influential too. He's got a very mature approach to recording and writing, has had from a very young age, and yeah, he's really good at just experimenting, but um he just knows my because I mean family, we just know each other's sound, I guess, so that really helps. Some might think that narrows the field too much. Maybe I should look outside the family and my circumstances, but at the moment it works for me. And maybe down the track, if I've got tons of money and I want to pay someone else to produce an album for me, I will. But at the end of the day, it's nice having control over your sound, and I've been very hands on with I guess the mixing and the production side of things too, and I really enjoy that.
Well, I think particularly when you know what you're doing, right? It's not like you're a rank amateur who's like, oh, I'm just going to record myself. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it is another way of looking at it. But speaking of,
True. Yeah.
now you have a family band as well, from what I understand,
Mm.
with
Yeah.
both children in and your husband.
Yes. The Von Robertsons.
So when did that start? How old were the kids?
Um, Honestly, I think probably the first gig we did, like serious gig, my daughter might have been grade 4 or 5. And so Heath would have been she's Carly, and he would have been year 7, I guess. So, they were pretty young, but that's
Yeah.
just the way this all came about was there were a few local things, you know, markets and whatnot that happened locally, and I got asked to go and play at them, and then occasionally the kids would get up and, you know, join in on a song, bring a guitar, bring a ukulele or whatever. And then, you know, obviously it's people started saying, oh, it's the Von Trapp family of Ocean Grove and that kind of thing, although the music's nothing like that. But yeah, it kind of just stuck in the end. It was like, oh, look, let's just stick with the Von Robertsons. People know who we are. They know that we're all separate in, you know, we do our own thing, but collectively that's what we become. And so, I mean, we've played quite a lot of gigs, but we've kept it pretty local. We've just done, you know, festivals and fairs and the Blues Train. Like we've played on the Blues Train a few times, and we've got some more bookings on there. But it's been great because Heath's wife, he got married last year. She's got a really stunning voice, so she songwrites and plays a bit of guitar as well. Like she doesn't do a lot with it really, but she did do that as a teenager, and that they actually met through an event called the Blues Boot Camp that used to be ran down here for youth, and she came, people from around Victoria came, and um yeah, that's how they met basically. So that was pretty cute. And then but so yeah, she sings and plays, and Carly's boyfriend, they've been together for a couple of years, he also is a musician, and they, you know, they're in multiple bands and they play you know, multiple instruments and songwrite, and so we're kind of, the band is potentially growing.
Absolutely. And I
Look,
love
I
it
don't think,
organically. You didn't
oh
even have to
yeah.
force it. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to joke at gigs sometimes, and when I'd introduce the band, and I'd say to people, I should have had more kids because then we could have had a bigger band. But it's like, oh gosh, no, two was enough.
And there you go, you got them anyway. You got
Yeah, I
the
did.
more
Yeah,
band members. Speaking of gigs, we're going to move on to Americana on the Bellarine, which is your baby. You created this.
yeah, yeah.
When did you first have the idea for it?
Look, it's been there for quite a long time. Um, I can't pinpoint the exact time for you, but I suspect back as far as maybe 2017, 2018, I was thinking about this idea. And I eventually started doing something about it in 2019 with a view to holding it in 2020
Ta-da!
at
Yeah.
a venue called Bellarine Estate down here. It's a winery, really beautiful spot, and I did one of my launches from there. But then COVID came along.
Mhm.
So it's like, so this thing that I was hoping to yeah, grow and sort of had this vision to make it become an annual event, but I wanted to keep it small. I didn't want it to grow too big. I felt like just keeping it as a nice, intimate, I guess micro festival is the word that's kind of being thrown around a bit now. Yeah, or you know, mini festival or whatever you want to say. But just an opportunity to showcase some really amazing songwriters, you know, from our area, but getting some in from beyond as well. So it pivoted to the first one pivoted to a live stream event, which that's when I kind of first made contact with you, purely because you probably heard about it through, was it Greta Zilla, perhaps through her
I
promos?
remember, yeah, but I remember, I do remember, yes, us being in contact with each other and remembering those days when
Yeah,
everything had to very quickly change, and
yeah.
yeah, that was amazing that you went ahead with it.
Well, I think I just needed to, because I was just, it was for myself, but also for these, you know, my fellow musicians who we're all, you know, I had Sarah Carroll involved in that one, Nathan Seeks, and Wayne Jury and Greta Zilla. And I hadn't met Greta before, but I just thought it'd be cool to reach out to someone different from outside of our area. And she just seemed like a terrific fit, and she was. And I just said, look, this is what I'm trying to do. It was mainly because a family member who's a real tech nerd, like a gamer and all that stuff. It was on my husband's side. So he's actually, I think he's a second cousin, but sort of closer to our age. So I don't know. Anyway, um, we just I just got in touch with him and said, look, this is what I'm thinking of doing. How would I make it happen? Like I was just trying to work out. And he said, oh yeah, we can do this. So if you get it, we can stream it as a live stream, but if you get it all pre-recorded and get it to me, I'm going to set up the link. We'll use this program and da 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 da. And it was like, I wouldn't have been able to do it without him. That's for sure.
Right.
Like, I would have been able to record it and just put it up on YouTube, but he made it possible to do it as a live stream so people could comment. We had the my PayPal account linked to it so people could we just made it a pay what you can event. So we didn't want people to miss out if they couldn't afford it, because music's just so important for people to be able to enjoy and share. Um, so that's very much how we approached it. But people were very generous, and the view was to divide that up between the 5 artists, and yeah, just, I don't know, a little bit of income, but it was more just the opportunity to be involved in something and try to connect with an audience in that limited way. Thankfully we had it, but it was, when you think back to it, it was really wonderful that we had the opportunity to do Zooms and live streams and all that. But there's nothing like being before a real audience or just being with people face to face.
Yeah, live music is the best, as I'm very fond to say.
Absolutely.
But clearly after, because someone else might have been put off by the fact that that's what happened to the first festival, but you clearly weren't. So after 2020, obviously 2021 was probably a bust. But so what happened after that? Take me through it.
Yeah. So the view, or the vision, just didn't go away. I didn't think I needed to do it as a live stream again, but it was really about getting the timing right for the next one. And I actually did have it booked in to do with the venue. We had to keep pushing the date back because of the snap closures, and then people started losing confidence in going out. So it was like, oh, I think we just need to put this on the back burner for a little longer. And then I got a grant for creative through Creative Victoria to do that second one as a live ticketed event, which meant I had the artist fees covered, or majority of them. But so then I was, because there's always this element of risk that, okay, I can do all of these things, but at the end of the day, am I going to end up in debt? I want to do paid promotions. I want to pay people properly. That was the other thing. I wanted to be able to pay artists properly and not just say, look, I might be able to give you $50 for your time, but it was like, I'd really love to, I want you to be appreciated for what you do. So it was wonderful when I got that grant and I was able to go ahead and do some proper paid promotions. And we used a local craft brewery. It was a outdoor space, but well sheltered. So the whole thing of people being nervous about coming along, they could come along and be in a crowd. It was capped at 100, and it sold out. So like about 10 days before the event. So that was a really good feeling, because it's like, okay, I think we're onto something good here. And then the feedback after that one. So I think at that particular one we had Nathan Seeks again and Sarah Carroll, Annie Rose Maloney, and Alistair Turrell. So kind of all Geelong Bellarine based people. And it was just such a great event. And because I had a food truck as well, I used to run a food truck. So there was a food truck and your drinks, and this outdoor setting, which was sheltered and protected. It was a bit blowy. I remember the day, it was, really windy, but it was warm, and it was great. People were just able to relax and enjoy themselves, and they could spread out if they didn't want to get too close to anybody. And so, that again, it just felt like we were on the right track with it. A lot of people saying we need more of this thing, and oh, can we do another one soon? And it's like, oh, yeah, we can, but it actually takes a lot of effort as well. So I just, the whole idea for it to become an annual event, I feel like it's well on its way. You never know what's going to be down the track, but this will be the fourth event, or the third live ticketed one, because the next year, which was last year, and I've got to check what year I'm in now, because it was 20, started.
Yeah, no, it's a bit like that.
So we're sort of pegged second last weekend of February is kind of going to be where it sits usually now, I think. That's the plan. And we shifted venues to one over at the Potato Shed, which is a performance space in Drysdale, sort of between Ocean Grove and the township of Drysdale, but it's classed as Drysdale. There's an amazing theatre space with multiple rooms, but they also got some funding to set up an outdoor stage, proper stage, proper lights. They take the sound, all the good equipment out there, set up a bar, all this stuff, and it's like a natural amphitheater. It has sloped grass slopes, but it's they've got terrific facilities, really good, really accessible, all abilities. So it's actually really well set up. And I spoke with them about doing it on their outdoor stage, knowing that, if we got 100, that'd be great, but we could really blow out if we needed to, because there's heaps of room to spread up, up the hill and everything. And we had it was over 200 last year at the event. So, you know, I'm hoping for similar numbers, but maybe we can go a little bigger. Like they probably have to cap it at 250 or something. Otherwise, people would be up around the corners and might not be able to hear properly. But it's a great space, and it was perfect weather. It really was a wonderful evening, and I was, you know, so thankful for how it all went. The beauty of that venue is that if the weather turns on us, which is quite possible, being where we live, right near the ocean and in Victoria and all those things, there's got this indoor theatre space. So we can, yeah, shift indoors if need be. But, you know, fingers crossed, we can just enjoy the twilight event and be under the stars.
So, because I was looking up some details before I spoke to you, and one thing I like to emphasize with shows, because I don't think it actually gets mentioned enough, is how easy it is to park. Because I think for anyone who's near a major city, I live in Sydney, parking is
Yeah.
a factor. I'm surprised more venues don't mention it, but there's plenty of space for people to park
Yeah,
at this
plenty of
venue.
space, really easy access. There's like a little bit of a slope if you're coming in from the outdoor area, but you can easily walk in through the building to get to the space on a nice flat level surface, and there's the you know, accessible toilet and everything in there as well. So yeah, they've really thought of it well, and it's actually a council-owned building, so I guess they've had to make sure a lot of those things are covered. But it's very well utilised by the community. There's a local secondary college and a private school right nearby. They're sort of either side of it, and it's a space. It was set up originally for their performing arts students to be able to also use during the year, which they do. So my kids have benefited from. They went to that local public school and used that performance space and
Right.
had concerts there, and it's terrific. Yeah.
Yeah. And for anyone who's wondering, it's only about 20 minutes from Geelong, which in itself is not that far from Melbourne. So it's absolutely doable for anyone
Yeah.
who's
Oh,
there.
of course. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful part of the world. There's a lot to see and do down here. The peninsula itself, we have, you know, the surf side, which is kind of where I am in Ocean Grove. Barwon Heads is just across the bridge, Point Lonnie and Queenscliff just sort of down the point. And then if you keep going around, there's beautiful little seaside towns, Indented Head, St Leonard's, and then it leads around into Port Arlington, which has actually grown quite a bit. There's just plenty to do at all of the places, and then there's obviously lots of wineries. That's a large part of our tourism down here. There's the Sea Road ferries, which we use a lot, goes across to the Mornington Peninsula, and yeah, we've used that quite a lot ourselves, just for a day trip, or if we've gone camping, we take the van over and yeah, tootle around the peninsula on the other side.
Yeah, you're making it sound like it's worth a whole weekend away, Andrea.
It absolutely is. And I'm not in tourism. I love where I live. It's a great
Yeah.
great place. Yeah.
I have heard that Ocean Grove is lovely. I know someone who moved there from Melbourne. So but is now in Sydney. So I can't even say, oh, you might know this person, which is always very happy. So obviously somewhat enjoy being a festival director, because you've done it a few times now.
Well, it would seem that way. I guess it's not really I guess it's not a title I set out to add to my skill set, but it kind of seems that way a little bit, because I've kept going ahead and organizing these, but I've also organized a few other events over the years, and I do enjoy it. I haven't had any, you know, proper training in any way, but I guess I've just learnt from experience, and every now and then I go along to, you know, Music Victoria sessions or something, you know, an event that that they hold, and they come to, you know, Geelong area, and they bring speakers in, and sometimes I'll go along to them, and every now and then you just glean new bits of info that might be handy, that you just sort of, you know, tuck away in your memory, and it's like, oh yeah, let's try this approach now. And you know, I guess you get into a bit of a rhythm with it all, and I don't know if I'd want to be doing it all the time, but I kind of like doing what I'm doing is a nice amount. And I am actually I'm putting the feelers out to do a couple of other shows, sort of try and co-organize or organize myself mid-year shows as well. So, and leaning towards trying to bring this whole Americana thing to another setting in Geelong.
And I do love the idea of the micro festival. I actually hadn't heard that term before, but I think it's a good one, because it's that idea of you don't have to invest a whole weekend. Some people don't have a weekend, or they don't want to have to travel too far to do it. But that's that's a great amount of music. It's a manageable amount of music, and then you can go home and think, well, I've had hours of entertainment.
Yeah, yeah, and it hasn't cost too much, and I haven't. Yeah, they don't have to stay over if they don't want to. They can still travel home, and I think that the micro festival, I can't claim that term, but it was one that was being thrown around. I think it's being thrown around in music circles at a management level a bit, and it seems to be, you know, people are saying it's kind of the way of the future with a lot of the bigger festivals
Mhm.
kind of going bust or just not able to commit to holding them. That they're saying that this is, you know, I was ahead of my time. It's where this is the way of the future, that yeah, scaling it back and holding these more intimate events is the way to go.
Well, I
So,
know you're on the bill for it, so if people want to both check out the festival and check out you live, they can do that. And I'll put a link to the festival and to your music in the show notes. I am going to leave it there though, because it sounds like you have a very busy, full life. I've had you talking for quite a while, and
yeah,
it's
it's
been
been
such a
great though.
pleasure.
Thank you so much, Sophie. I really appreciate your time and getting me on the show.
So thanks for coming.